In this video, we're going to be going over some class-flavored utility spells in both classic and modern versions of the game. These spells are all iconic of the class they represent, and they're also quite nifty, but usually in a more novel and subtle way. And at number 20, we have the Rogue Lockpicking ability. Like many of the abilities that will be on this list, the Lockpicking ability has slowly seen a decline in both gameplay and class flavor as the game has progressed. Remember, in early WoW, many dungeons and raids required keys to enter as well as attunements. While attunements could not be skipped, some keys could be overcome with a rogue using the lockpicking ability to open up the entrance for the party. A great example still in the modern game is right before the first boss of the Shattered Halls. To get to the Grand Warlock, a large locked door blocks your way, requiring you to jump into a sewer nearby and work your way through grimy slimes. But with the help of a rogue, you can simply unlock the door and waltz right into the boss room. Of course, in the modern game, lockpicking is only really used for opening lockboxes. And there are many other ways to open lockboxes now through professions as well. These include skeleton keys made by blacksmiths, seraphim charges for engineers, and even a jewel crafter's pick and an inscription scroll. Finally, in Shadowlands, there's just straight out an ability for anyone and everyone to lockpick as long as they're a member of the Maldraxxus Covenant. This ability is called Keyring and is a Necrolord soulbind trait. Getting some gold and some old transmog from a lockbox never hurt anyone, and lockpicking is such a core part of the rogue class identity, we couldn't simply ignore it. And of course, there is the odd dungeon here and there that still has a locked door or two, so it comes in at number 20 on this list. Next up at number 19, we have the Warlock ability Unending Breath. This is a Warlock spell that grants a target ally the ability to breathe underwater for 10 minutes. This ability has been in the game since the very beginning, and as a fun fact, in the beta version of WoW, it was called Demon Breath. Unfortunately, underwater breathing can only really be useful in a handful of situations, all of which involve water. The vast majority of WoW's gameplay is not water-based, which is probably for the best with how zones like Vashj'ir were largely negatively received by players. Besides, most quests that require the player to go underwater usually have some sort of underwater breathing mechanism built in. Additionally, there are many ways to get underwater breathing, such as with potions and even with some fishing poles like the Mastercraft Kulak fishing pole, which is the Tuskarr epic fishing pole from Wrath. The default underwater breathing time for players is 3 minutes, which is actually a pretty long time, but the Unending Breath does increase this time by 3.3 times. Repeating, of course. The Unending Breath was originally a glyph called the Glyph of Unending Breath, which made anyone affected by your Unending Breath spell swim 20% faster, which is quite a nice boon over the regular spell, so much so it was later just made a baseline part of the ability, making it worth the cast anytime you approach water, even if running out of breath is no worry. All this means that while Unending Breath can be quite useful, it really isn't something you should hold your breath for. And at number 18, we have the delightful dihydrogen monoxide duo of the Shaman ability Water Walking and the Death Knight ability Path of Frost. These abilities both allow players to walk on water, but with some slight variations. Shaman can only water walk to one friendly player at a time within 30 yards of them, and the buff lasts for 10 minutes. For Path of Frost, the ability is an aura the Death Knight player casts around themselves, which affects party array members up to 50 yards away. Being able to walk on water is certainly helpful in some situational encounters or in PvP, but is rather limited. Additionally, there are other ways to gain water walking, such as the Elixir of Water Walking, or the Warlock Glyph of Nightmares, which made the Fell Steed and Dread Steed able to run across water using a trail of flames, although it was sadly removed in Legion. These water walking abilities were significantly diminished in battle for Azeroth expansion, when mount equipment was added to the game. Since then, most mounts can now easily walk on water. This made water walking with Path of Frost virtually useless in open world activities after this change, since mount equipment in the modern game made it so anyone in the open world could run at mount speed on open water. This means that these abilities are now much less useful than they once were, which is why they're at the lower end of this list. However, don't forget that both water walking and Path of Frost can still be used in instances and indoors where mounts cannot be used. And I guess Shaman and Death Knights can use another mount equipment instead, at the cost of having to remember to cast your water walking ability. And at number 17, we have two terrific teleporting abilities, with the Monk's Zen Pilgrimage and the Death Knight's Deathgate. The Zen Pilgrimage ability lets monks return to the original starting location of an instant version of the Peak of Serenity in the Kunlite Summit. If the monk has done the Legion campaign, it will instead take them to the Monk Class Hall, which is the Temple of the Five Dawns. The Deathgate ability is very similar, but takes the Death Knight to the Ebon Hold, which is an necropolis floating above the Eastern Plaguelands. During Legion, Acheris was moved close to Dalaran in the Broken Isles, and it is there that the Deathgate takes Death Knight players if they have started the Legion Class Hall campaign. While both have their uses, the most significant part of these abilities, aside from the Death Knight's rune forging, is that most of these areas have portals leading to other places, meaning that both Zen Pilgrimage and Deathgate can be thought of as somewhat similar abilities to Mage's Teleport. A big difference is that both Zen Pilgrimage and Deathgate can be cast again at the Monk Temple and Acris, respectively, to return to the spot where the player had first cast it. The Peak of Serenity has portals to both Stormwind and Orgrimmar, and with a cooldown of Zen Pilgrimage only being 1 minute, this means monks can get to Stormwind or Orgrimmar almost whenever they want by casting Zen Pilgrimage and then climbing the steps to the portals. In both Legion order halls for the Monk and Death Knight, they had portals to Dalaran, and since Dalaran also has portals to Stormwind and Orgrimmar, both monks and Death Knights who have done Legion content can use the ability to once again move past these 2 portals to move back to their faction's capital. This is great for moving quickly through the worlds or worlds, as WoW can be a pretty big place. There are 2 main differences between Zen Pilgrimage and the Deathgate. First, while there are portals to both Stormwind and Orgrimmar above the Peak of Serenity, there are no portals in Acris above the Eastern Plaguelands. Meaning, if DKs have not done the start of the Legion campaign, the Deathgate ability is significantly weakened in terms of mobility of traveling around the world. Second, the cast time for Zen Pilgrimage is 10 seconds long, while the cast time for the Deathgate is only 4 seconds. The difference in cast times is presumably so DKs can runeforge their weapons more quickly, as it is a class mechanic. And at number 16, we have the Druid ability, Dreamwalk. This is another teleport ability that replaces the Druid ability, Teleport Moonglade, when the Druid starts the Legion campaign order hall. Similar to how both Deathgate and Zen Pilgrimage were revamped and their destinations changed in Legion, so was the Druid's ability, Teleport Moonglade, as it was turned into Dreamwalk. Dreamwalk ability takes the Druid to the Emerald Dream, where they have access to varying places across Azeroth using portals. These include Veralis, Grizzly Hills, Moonglade, Duskwood, the Hinterlands, Mount Hyjal, and the Dream Grove, which is the Druid class hall in Val Shara. With Dragonflight, a new portal is also open which leads to Midrasil, the new Night Elf capital, which is a new world tree off the shore of the Onaran Plains. While being able to hop around the world is nice, and like Zen Pilgrimage and Deathgate, there is a portal to Dalaran from the Dream Grove, and therefore jumping through some hoops to get to the faction capitals. Let's face it, most of the zones where great trees are located are out of the way, and there's no real content purposes to go there at max level. However, just because there are far more places you can go to Dreamwalking, it is ranked slightly higher than both Zen Pilgrimage and Deathgate. And at number 15 and 14, we have a tie between 2 functionally similar abilities, which are the Mage Slowfall ability and the Priest Levitate. Both of these abilities slow the player's falling speed, allow them to fall from a great distance without taking fall damage. These 2 abilities share a lot in common. For example, they both have been in the game since vanilla, and both required a light feather reagent in order to cast them before the Mist of Pandaria expansion, which saw the removal of most spell reagents from the game. While the usefulness of these abilities is limited to places with heights, at least players are far more likely to run into steep changes in elevation than larger expanses of water that they need to cross. Slowfall and Levitate are not the only ways to get the slowfall effects, as there are potions, consumables, even some toys that also apply the slowfall effect. The Levitate ability not only grants a reduction of fall speed, but also allows players to float over water, automatically making it better than just a slowfall ability. Levitate is only weaker than Water Walking and Path and Frost in the regard that Levitate does not work while the player is on a mount. While there are some other player abilities that grant slowfall like the Moonkid's Flap and the Hunter Pet Updraft, these cannot be cast on other players like Slowfall and Levitate can, and are rather specific. Since Levitate is slightly better than Slowfall since it allows the player to float on water, Slowfall is placed at number 15 and Levitate is placed at number 14. And at number 13, we have another ability similar to Slowfall, this time with a Glide. While nominally similar to Slowfall effects, Glide is different since you can more accurately control its direction and momentum. Additionally, it has no cooldown or duration, and it can be activated and deactivated simply by pressing jump while in the air. Only Demon Hunters as a class have the ability. While the Drakthir have almost the exact same Glide ability, that ability is a racial ability instead of a class ability. Additionally, it is not a unique racial, as there is the Pterodactyl Swoop ability of the Zandalari Trolls. While Glide is unique as a class ability to Demon Hunters, any player of any class can still use the consumable Goblin Gliders or other similar engineering tinkers, toys, or gear to still glide around, and actually it is usually faster to use these items as well. The point being is that a glide mechanic isn't wholly unique to just Demon Hunters. However, since Demon Hunters are the only class that do have the glide ability, it is worth mentioning, and the glide ability does pair very well with the Demon Hunter's double jump passive as well. Glide also has no cooldown, which also makes it unique compared to the glider, allowing for no worry of falling to your death because you forgot your glider was on cooldown. The double jump and glide combo helps the Demon Hunter's insane mobility kit to be one of, if not the most mobile combat class in the game. Glide can be thought of as a very slow, free-falling controllable mount, and obviously the devs thought this ability was fun too, as it became a core feature of dragon riding. And at number 12 is the Warlock ability Soulstone. This ability allows the Warlock to store the soul of any player, including themselves, which allows the player to resurrect as soon as they die and press the Soulstone button. While Warlocks are not the only class that has a combat resurrection ability, they are the only pure DPS class with one. and theirs is more unique than any of the others. The Soulstone ability is a bit more unique because it's preemptive. Casting the Soulstone ability takes 3 seconds and the buff lasts for 15 minutes, but the resurrection prompt upon death within those 15 minutes is instantaneous, allowing for quick clickers to get instantly up after a death. The only downside to Soulstone is that this cast time can be interrupted while in combat, making it difficult for warlocks wanting to change those souls that want to be stored while in combat. And it requires a soul to be in the body, meaning that if someone dies and you cast Soulstone on them, it will fail if they've already released and started walking back as a ghost, since there's no more soul to store. The only other 3 combat resurrections in the game besides Soulstone are the Druid's Rebirth ability, Death Knight's Raise Ally, and the Paladin's new Intercession ability. Soulstone is unique because unlike Raise Ally, Revive, or Intercession abilities, the cast to start the target's soul in the Soulstone was done beforehand, such as before a boss pool or before rushing into the middle of the fray in the Warsong Gulch, meaning that the combat res does not have to be cast while in battle, and therefore it does not risk being interrupted. The ability to trap someone's soul does fit thematically for the Warlock class, and it is worthy of being the only resurrection ability on this list, since most resurrection abilities are more gameplay oriented than utility oriented. However, the Soulstone ability being preemptive only for the Warlock class makes it more of a class utility ability than any other resurrection ability, which is why it gets a spot on this list. A small note about very cool glyphs before I move on: the glyph of Fel Touch Shard Sand is a cosmetic glyph that causes a Fel-infused Soulstone to float around the Warlock. Thankfully, Soulstones in the modern game do not require a Soul Shard each to be cast like back in the days of old WoW, and overall, Soulstone is an amazing ability to protect squishy tanks, fearful healers, and of course even the Warlocks themselves. And at number 11, we have the Priest ability, Leap of Faith. This ability is a simple but effective one that allows a priest to pull a member of their party or raid toward them from up to 40 yards away. This allows priests to save players some things like stand in the fire during a boss fight. Leap of Faith is a lot like the Death Knight's Death Grip ability, but is usable on friendly targets instead of unfriendly ones. In fact, it is sometimes called a life grip, as the priest can pull the player from certain death. When pulled, the player sprouts a pair of angelic wings, but only for a second or two. Leap of Faith is unique because it essentially is a short distance mini teleport, even though the transfer is not instantaneous. However, don't let this fool you, since Leap of Faith is still quite useful as a utility spell. Leap of Faith can be cast in and out of combat, and it only has a cooldown of 90 seconds. There are innumerable ways for Leap of Faith to be used, but some of the most notable examples include scaling terrain, moving players from mechanics and raids, moving players in battlegrounds to achieve goals like capturing the flag in PvP faster, and pulling that one laggy member of the party back up to the rest of the team in a dungeon run. Although Leap of Faith may seem timeless, it was actually not added to the game until the Cataclysm expansion. Overall, Leap of Faith is one of the most versatile tools at a priest's disposal, and definitely leaps into action to land a spot on this list. Before we move on, a similar ability to Leap of Faith called Rescue must be addressed. Added in Dragonflight along with the Evoker class, the Rescue ability allows a Drakthera to swoop to an ally and fly with them to a target location. However, it is slightly more complicated since a Drakthera player must first target their target and then use the ability and then click on where they want to go. More importantly, Rescue has a 30-yard range while Leap of Faith has a 40-yard range. So we're saying Leap of Faith is still a little bit better than Rescue. And at number 10, we have another Warlock ability, this time the Demonic Gateway. Another short distance teleport that takes about 1 second to traverse, the Demonic Gateway is even more versatile than a Priest Leap of Faith because both the start and end points can be placed from afar, meaning players can travel between the destinations even if there's no player present on the opposite end. For example, for a Priest Leap of Faith someone up a cliff, the priest would already have to be up on top of the cliff and then bring the other player up to the top of the cliff with him. With the Demonic Gateway, not only does it not require another player, but as long as the location is within 40 yards and within line of sight, Demonic Gateway will work. But that isn't even the best part, because since the Demonic Gateway is not consumed on use, it will stay as long as the Warlock is alive, or for about 10 minutes. This gateway can be used as many times as you want, even by a whole raid of 40 people. However, at the cost of a 90-second debuff placed upon the target that used it, disallowing them from using it once again until the debuff runs out. Demonic Gateway is great in raid mechanics for avoiding standing in bad things on the ground, especially massive raid wiping cleaves or explosions that everyone needs to get away from, as well as in PvP, allowing groups of players to move up cliff sides they normally could not. Demonic Gateway is not a classic WoW, as it was only added in the Mists of Pandaria expansion, but has remained a staple of the Warlock class ever since, except for that little while where it had charges and could only teleport a couple of people at a time, which kinda sucked. In Shadowlands, a nice quality of life addition was added to the game with the Gateway Control Shard. This item allows a player to instantly use a Warlock portal without clicking on it by instead hotkeying onto their bars, provided they're within range of the lock portal. This item is not consumable, meaning players can put in their hotbar and not have to worry about trying to click the portal in hectic situations. The only downside to Demonic Gateway ability are the pesky 90-second debuff prevent you from using it again, although there is a PvP talent that reduces this to 60 seconds. One of the reasons for this is because the cast time demonic gateway is only 2 seconds, with about a second delay as the portals actually appear on the ground, while only having a 10-second cooldown to move it elsewhere, and because this cast time it is actually best to place it ahead of time, like the Soulstone, because cast it mid-combat can be dangerous, and cost you a lot of DPS time. Being able to cast a 40-yard leap every 12 seconds without any cooldowns would certainly be pretty overpowered. The ways in which Demonic Gateway can be used are innumerable, and is certainly one of the most versatile tools for short-distance mass player movement in the entire game, which is why it deserves to spawn this list at number 10 at the halfway mark. And at number 9, we have the second mage ability in this list, which is Blink. The Blink ability lets a mage instantly teleport 20 yards in front of them unless something is in their way, like a branch or a very slight incline. Blink has been in the game since WoW's inception and has hardly been changed since its launch. As a range caster class, Blink is primarily used for mages to make quick escapes when enemies get too close to them. However, it is also quite a useful movement ability, especially since Blink can have multiple charges. With 2 Blink charges and is cast instantly one after another, the mage can move forward 40 yards almost instantly. With a relatively low cooldown of 15 seconds, Blink can actually increase a mage's total distance covered by around 20% over a long period of time. Not only is Blink great for zipping around, but when it's used, it also removes most stuns and roots and grants immunity to them for a brief interval. Another nifty feature of Blink is that it can stop your falling speed if a mage uses it when falling. The distance teleported in the air restarts the fall damage counter, and if timed properly, blinking near the ground at the end of the fall will place you on the ground without taking any fall damage. We should mention this isn't the only ability that can do this. For example, both the Warrior's Heroic Leap and Hunter's Disengage can also reset fall damage, but it certainly helps making Blink all the more useful. Blink can further be augmented with several talents, but there are too many to go into detail in this video and is getting long enough already. While there are many short distance movement abilities in the game, like the Monk's Roll, the Warrior's Charge, or the Demon Hunter's Fell Rush, to name a couple, Blink is the only short distance movement that is a teleport and is instant, that doesn't require cast time or a target. We've only just barely scratched the surface of all the ways Blink can be used as a fun utility spell, but listing them all out would simply take too much time. Hopefully we've made it clear by now that Blink is quite the eye-catching ability, though in a more metaphorical way rather than a literal one. And at number 8 is the extremely epic Earth Elemental. This Shaman ability allows the player to instantly call forth a mighty Earth Elemental to protect them for 1 minute, or until the Earth Elemental dies. The Earth Elemental is a big, beefy rock boy, and is used as a temporary tank for the probably somewhat squishy Shaman. This makes it great while the Shaman is soloing elites, or if the tank suddenly dies in a dungeon or in a big trash pack. The instant summon is a great relief during stressful situations, as a Shaman can summon the temporary tank without having to worry about being interrupted by enemies while they're in combat. Although usually an emergency measure, the Earth Elemental itself taunts targets to it, meaning all the Shaman has to do is summon it and this one rock can stop the group from wiping. Additionally, while the Earth Elemental is active, the Shaman also gains a boost to their own health by 15%, which further helps them out of tight situations. The Earth Elemental was added as an Earth Totem in the Burning Crusade expansion, meaning you could not have it alongside other Earth Totems, and the totem remained in the game up until Legion. For Legion up to modern WoW, which is Dragonflight as of the time writing of this video, it is simply a typical active ability. While there are other tank pets like the Warlock's Voidwalker and many hunter pets which can also tank, these pets are class mechanics and the pets can be directly controlled. Class utility spells shine when they are incredibly useful and fit thematically lore-wise with the class's vibe. And the Earth Elemental ability is the perfect example of a good class utility spell. And at number 7 is yet another mage ability, this time the Conjure Refreshments. A very simple spell, this ability lets a mage summon a floating table of mana buns. Anyone in the mage's group can click on this table to get an instant ready-to-eat tasty snack. Eating these delicious buns will not only restore the players to 100% health, but also 100% of their mana if they have any. While there are innumerable vendors in WoW that sell food or drink, the Conjure Refreshment ability is unique in 2 main ways. First, it can be cast anywhere, which means the mage and any party members do not have to travel to a vendor to buy anything. This also saves them a bit of gold. Second, and more importantly, as we pointed out earlier, the mana buns restore 100% health and mana, and is the only food in the game to do so. The mana buns restoration effects scale with the player, unlike most foods which only return a certain amount of health and mana to the player. The 3-second cast time is not that long, and many healing specs will request a mage table before a boss fight so they can quickly fill up on their mana. Being out of mana is no fun, and the mage table helps prevent that in a big way. The Conjure Refreshment ability has been around since the Burning Crusade. While in vanilla, they had craft food and drink manually, without help from a table, meaning filling your raid's pockets with snacks meant a long time spamming spellcasts. And even today, mage tables see so much use they certainly aren't leaving the game anytime soon. While mages may be waiters since they are constantly being told to get food to others, the only other downside to Conjure Refreshments is that players cannot eat while in combat, which means that the 100% restoration of health and mana can only occur outside of combat. While mana regen is not really that much of an issue in the modern game compared to classic versions, being out of mana can be a real buzzkill, and sometimes a literal kill. Even if its use in the modern game has been diminished outside Mythic Plus, its importance in WoW's early expansions cannot be overstated, and the mage table provides enough food in a fantasy setting to make even George R.R. Martin jealous. And at number 6, we have another shaman ability with Ghost Wolf. This ability allows the shaman to transform into a spear wolf and increases their movement speed by 30%. The Ghost Wolf ability is instant and is similar to the way a druid shapeshifting works. However, the druid shapeshifting ability is a core class mechanic, whereas the Ghost Wolf is more of a flavor and utility spell. The Ghost Wolf duration is indefinite, and the shaman is free to choose when and where to convert back into the regular model. Just like the druid shapeshifting abilities, it can be used indoors and in instances. The most important and powerful part of the Ghost Wolf ability is the permanent increase to movement speed by at least 30%. And this speed can even be increased to 50% with some talents that improve the speed while in Ghost Wolf form. These talents include Graceful Wolf, Spirit Wolf, Thunderous Paws, and Winds of Alakir. A particular note is the Spirit Wolf talent, as it increases the movement speed while in Ghost form to a permanent 50% after 4 seconds in Ghost Wolf form. The Ghost Wolf ability has been around since vanilla and was originally a 40% speed boost until Kata, when it was dropped down to 30%. The original Wolf model was updated in WoD. Additionally, there are 2 other customizations to the Inscription profession. The Spectral Vulpine is available with Shadowlands Inscription, allowing you to transform into a Spectral Fox. And there's also the Spectral Robotic Wolf, and from Legion Inscription, the Spectral Raptor. While many classes have a sprint-like ability, Shamans are the only class that gets a practically permanent speed buff they could use anywhere, even in death, allowing for faster long-distance travel after a wipe. So Ghost Wolf is definitely a K9 out of 10 ability. And at number 5, we have the Divine Steed ability. One of the signature abilities of the Paladin class, Divine Steed allows a player to mount their light-infused trusty steed and cross great distances in a short amount of time. Specifically, it increases movement speed by 100% for 3 seconds. What makes Divine Steed so great is not just how fast it is, but the fact that it's usable in combat and while indoors. Additionally, it only had a 45-second cooldown, which is a pretty low cooldown considering how fast it lets the Paladin move. There are a couple of talents that can improve the Divine Steed ability. The Cavalier improvement grants a Paladin 2 charges of Divine Steed, and this seasoned Warhorse talent increases the duration of Divine Steed by 2 seconds. When both are selected, this means Paladins can have a full 10 seconds of mount speed in just about any situation. But that's not all. If you also are a Protection Paladin in PCP, you can use the Steed of Glory, which makes it last another 2 seconds while also making you immune to movement impairing effects, and causing you to knock back people you come into contact with, which is an amazing setup for the Alteric Valley Bridge to throw packs of your enemies into the valley below. The Divine Steed ability was added in Legion, but the original Paladin mount, which is the Charger, has been in the game since vanilla. As a fun fact, every playable Paladin race has their own unique Divine Steed mount model. Humans have the aforementioned Chargers, while Blood Elves have the Thalassian Chargers. Dwarves have Dornforged Rams, and Dark Iron Dwarves have Darkforged Rams. Draenei have Elex, and Lightforged Draenei have Ruin Striders. Finally, Taurens have Kodos, and Zendalari Trolls have Direhorns. So not only is the Divine Steed a utility that fits thematically with the Paladin class, but it also fits in racially with each mount as well. Divine Steed is one of the fastest ways, if not the fastest way, to travel rapidly over short distances in the game, and the amount of distances it covers is more than probably any other movement speed ability that it can be compared to. Divine Steed can certainly help Paladins get out of tough spots, and means Paladins don't have to rely on Divine Intervention quite as often. And at number 4 is the Evoker ability Hover. This one class race combo of the Evoker and Drakthir was added in the Dragonflight expansion. Hover is similar to many other short-term movement speed abilities that we've touched on, such as the Paladin's Divine Steed. Hover only increases movement speed with Drakthir by 30% for 6 seconds. So what's so powerful about it? Well, it is so powerful because it first starts with a burst forward as if you cast Blink, followed up with allowing for most spells to be cast while the player is moving. This means Drakthir can be fast, mobile, and be spamming out spells all at the same time. There are also at least 5 improvements from the talent tree that can enhance Hover even further. The Tailwind talent increases movement speed of Hover up to 70% for the first 4 seconds. The Extended Flight talent increases Hover's duration by up to 4 seconds. Finally, the Aerial Mastery grants Hover a second charge. Combined, that means Drakthir can float on the ground for 20 seconds in total, with 8 of those seconds being at 70% increased movement speed, and the other 12 at 30%. Additionally, there's an Augmentation Invoker talent called Aspect's Favor, which further increases Hover's movement speed by up to additional 40%. With Aspect's Favor and Tailwind, that means the player movement speed is increased by 110%, which is 10% more than even the Divine Steed. So Drakthir can go faster than a mount while casting most of their arsenal of abilities, which is the heart of what makes hovers so powerful, making them a caster version of the Demon Hunter with their powerful mobility. However, this mobility is required because of the Invoker's reduced casting range, limiting their reach. Hover makes Drakthir very unique and is a core part of the mobility of the Evoker class, and without Hover, Evokers would be pretty boring and underwhelming as a caster class. The only downside to Hover is that it does not work with empowered spells, but that is simply to make sure the ability is not totally overpowered. And at number 3, we have the Paladin ability, Divine Shield. This ability grants the player immunity to all damage, harmful effects, knockbacks, and forced movement effects for 8 seconds. Commonly called bubbling, this nearly impenetrable shield is a super strong utility ability for several reasons. Not only does it stop all magical and physical damage, but it also stops most dots, CCs, and silences. This makes the Paladin practically invulnerable for 8 seconds, granting the player a bit of reprieve to cast healing spells and plan a quick course of action in a tight spot. Of course, the Divine Shield is also well known for the Bubble Hearth meme, where the Paladin used their Hearthstone to escape a situation while they were completely invulnerable. Since the Hearthstone cast time is shorter than the bubble duration, the Paladin can completely cast their Hearthstone while bubbled, and the cast can be uninterrupted. Of course, this isn't all Divine Shield is used for, and its ability to completely mitigate damage can be used in some clever ways, like taking 0 fall damage, or taking no damage from drowning, or being out of bounds. The Divine Shield is practically invulnerable because there are only 2 abilities in the game that can dispel Divine Shield. These 2 abilities are the Priestmass Dispel and the Warrior's Shattering Throw, as well as for some time a long time ago, Chaos Bolt could just pierce through it. The only other comparable shield ability to Divine Shield is the Hunter's Aspect of the Turtle, which also deflects all attacks and is 8 seconds long. However, during the time the Hunter cannot attack, while the Paladin can do whatever they want within the 8 seconds they are to Divine Shield, and are immune to far fewer things. To make sure no one can chain Divine Shields to become essentially God, the game automatically applies a Forbearance debuff into the Paladin after they use Divine Shield. This debuff lasts for 30 seconds and says, cannot be affected by Divine Shield, Anna Protection, or Lay on Hands. Being an unstoppable God, even if it is only for 8 seconds, is of course going to make this one of the strongest utility spells in the game, and so it comes in at number 3 on this list. Next up at number 2 is another one of the most useful abilities in the entire game, and that's the Warlock's Ritual of Summoning, a class well known as one of the most utility-based classes. While the Mage is often said to be only good for their Mage table, the Warlock is often said to only be good for their summoning and health stones. The Ritual Summoning allows the Warlock to summon anyone in the party to the location, no matter where they are. This is particularly useful when the run back after a wipe will take a long time in dungeons and raids, as well as just generally getting people around the vast world of Warcraft. The Warlock Ritual requires at least 3 people, one of which includes the Warlock, but the act of summoning a person from the portal only requires 2 people. The Ritual Summoning can be used on anyone within a party almost anywhere at any time, with 2 major exceptions. It cannot be used in battlegrounds or while the person is in combat. The Ritual Summoning can be very good for bringing back raid groups to a boss after wiping, since many players may need to leave the instance to repair or refill pots and foods, or getting those lazy people to your group who just refuse to walk or fly. It would take forever for everyone to get back to the raid entrance and then walk through the raid to where the boss is, wherever that may be. The Ritual Summoning Vanilla required a Soulstone per person you summoned, a cast time every time you summoned, however, same with Hellstones. Especially useful in Vanilla WoW before Beating Stones gained the ability to summon. But with Wrath of the Lich King, the Ritual Summoning became how we know it today. A giant stone that you summon and then anyone can use, and only needing 1 Soul Shard. Although the Ritual Summoning is often overlooked and is easily forgettable, WoW would be much worse off without it. This unsung hero comes at number 2 in this list, even if you have to yell at people to click the summoning circle a few times before the ritual completes. And finally, at number 1, we have the Mage ability Teleport. World of Warcraft is almost 20 years old at the time of writing this video. 20 years of content, multiple planes of existence, several worlds, and the many continents of Azeroth is a lot to navigate. However, for mages, it's a bit more simple, since they can both teleport and make portals for other party members to many major and important locations across Azeroth and beyond. Both of the teleport ability and portal ability take 10 seconds to cast, but their functionality and list of locations more than makes up for their somewhat long cast time. Not even the portal room locations in both Stormwind and Orgrimmar have all the portals that mages can cast. The teleport ability is technically not a single ability, as each teleport destination must be learned individually. And while this is technically true, all teleports share the same spell requirements, as well as the fact that they can even be stacked on the mage's hotbar, which lends credence to them all being pretty much the same spell, same for the portals. Mages get teleports. These allow the mage to simply cast a spell and appear at a set location of their choice, be it a major city or a plane of importance to mages. But they also get the portal ability, exact same in every way, except these instead place a portal that anyone in their party or raid can use. Let's face it, getting around Azeroth and beyond can be a chore, And while finally consolidating many portals into the portal room BFA, Blizzard also removed some other convenient portals, making traversing the world even longer. Although end content is usually on one continent in expansion, teleport really shines when doing old content, as it allows mages to jump between continents and worlds to do dailies, old raids, or events as much as the heart desires. For Alliance mages, mages can teleport to the major faction cities of Azeroth, which include Stormwind, Ironforge, Darnassus, Theramore, the Exodar, the Shrine of the Seven Stars, and the Veil of Eternal Blossoms, and finally Borealis. For portals to more PvP-focused zones, Alliance mages can teleport to the Baradin base camp of Tolbarad Peninsula, as well as the Storm Shield in Azshara and alternate Draenor. For Horde players, the major cities of Azeroth mages can teleport to include Orgrimmar, Thunderbluff, Undercities, Silvermoon, the Shrine of Two Moons, and the Veil of Eternal Blossoms in Pandaria, and lastly, Dazara Lore. Additionally, on Azeroth, Horde mages can teleport to Stonard near the entrance to the Blasted Lands as well. For portals to more PvP-focused zones, Horde mages can teleport to Hellscream's Reach on the Tolbarad Peninsula, as well as the Darkspirit Ashran and alternate Draenor. And all of those are just the faction-specific locations mages can teleport to. All mages can also teleport to Shattrath, Northern Dalaran Crater, and Hillsbrad Foothills, famous for spawning you in the sky, which will kill the unsuspecting player who doesn't read the portal tag. Hall of the Guardian, which is the Mage Class Hall, Broken Isles, Dalaran, Oribos, and Valdrakken. These are all the mage teleports as of the time of writing this video. With each new expansion, another teleport is added to the main central hub for the expansion as well. Additionally, the mage teleports are often far more useful than their portal room counterparts. While the Legion portals go to Azshara, mages can go directly to the Broken Isles Dalaran. The same is the case with Pandaria, where mages can teleport directly to the Veil of Eternal Blossoms, instead of having to fly over from the Jade Forest where the portal room takes all other players. Hopefully you can see just how useful teleports is as a class utility ability. No other class in the game can travel as fast or as far as the mage can in such a short amount of time. While its practical and gameplay functions may be limited, the ability itself is so powerful because it takes much of the hardship of traversing the world of Warcraft away, which in this very rare case is a good thing. So of course teleport comes in at first in this list. Nothing personal, kid. And of course you can't end it off without talking about the portal roulette, where you place every portal you can on top of each other and see where you end up, with one maybe leading to your death if you don't have a slow fall. Well, that does it for the video. A pretty long one, and for some brief qualifications on when deciding what a class utility ability is, the player buffs such as Battle Shout and Power of Fortitude were left out because those are more gameplay oriented than class utility, and have no real gameplay, more so just to offer a temporary stat increase. Indeed, the buffs themselves are not that impressive, but only become noticeable when applied to a large group of players. There are so many other class utility abilities we didn't list, but the ones on this list have no negative effects at all, like how the Warlock ability Brilliant Rush can chew through health. Hopefully that explains some of the mythology and thought process behind the video. So, what do you think? What are obvious glaring abilities that we did not include? There's probably a fair few, and there are so many that we couldn't rank them all in a top 10. So this video became a top 20. As always, thank you for the privilege of giving me your time to watch some silly little videos about WoW, and we'll see you next time.